Christine, you should do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine, for reminding us in this weather. And Miss Christine Anderson rubbed her hands together to get us warm, and we're all warmed up tonight. Hello, beloved church family of the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Paul Pursuti, and I'll be your host tonight. I welcome you to our midweek oasis, our Wednesday night service. As you'll be able to experience tonight, our Wednesday night oasis is a place where we come together as a community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. Most Wednesday night services build upon the theme of the previous Sunday, sharing in a satsang style expressing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings be informal, intimate, and interactive. I'd like to remind you what our theme for 2023 is, as it's drawing to a close. It's Living Out Loud. Our monthly theme for December is Living as Wholeness. Last Sunday, Reverend Savannah Noel introduced ideas inspired by the talk title of Recognizing Wholeness, Seeing the Good in All. And tonight, our speaker will continue the exploration of this same topic. So as we gather tonight, I really want to welcome you. When Reverend Sunshine came to us a little over a year now, just barely, she came with an idea that really attracted me to her ministry. And she said, please come to the center well. So to do so, she shared with us these 6 C's for us to consider and incorporate. She said, come with a heart of love and tenderness, which she calls compassion. Come ready to exchange openly. We call that communication. Come in friendship and family, known as camaraderie. Come in harmony and ready to share and union. Come in partnership and cooperation. We'll call that collaboration. But mostly come in spiritual awareness and truth, consciousness. As we move into our program tonight, these 6 C's are the premise of sharing a wonderful evening with you tonight. And if you're new to our community, please visit our homepage, www.oaklandcsl.org, and click on the I'm New icon and look at the lower left-hand corner of that page to submit your email address. Once you do, you'll begin receiving the Village News newsletter once a week in your email. It has all the information on what is happening at the center in the coming weeks. So before we get started, please mute your own audio microphone during tonight's service. You can leave your camera on, but when you mute your audio microphone, it will improve the quality of our recording in tonight's transmission. Also, please stay tuned through the end of the service to receive special and important announcements. As we do with every organized event at the center, we open with prayer. And tonight, I've asked Reverend Sunshine to do the honors. Reverend Sunshine?
Thanks so much, Paul. I appreciate it. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And let's go within, dear hearts, into that sacred space, that sacred sanctuary, where we take that breath. And we know without a doubt that the breath comes in and the breath goes out. There's nothing we have to do but simply allow it to come. We expect it, and let's appreciate that sacred breath, which is reflective of all of life. Life is that eternal breath, that oneness, that wholeness, that divine connection in and of spirit that is unending, like the circle with no beginning, no ending. So we simply allow that breath to come in and out, and sustaining our lives, invigorating us, and bringing us together in that one breath, that one life, that one power and presence of God that I bless this evening from. I know that this Wednesday night, midweek oasis, the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, on this very day is blessed and anointed. And we have all been called here, whether we're here in person via Zoom or whether we're watching this recording at another time. We are all here together, joined in love and in harmony. I bless our speaker tonight, Maude Wilson, knowing that she is rooted and grounded in God, that she is anchored through Mother Gaia, below her, that richness of the earth, that wholeness that holds her and allows her to speak her truth and to breathe in and to speak the truth from divine wholeness, from her unique message that she has to offer us tonight, where we are inspired and we are invigorated by the message, by the participants, by the engagements and the interaction, by the camaraderie, and by our collective consciousness here together. We celebrate tonight. And in joy and gratitude, we simply allow it to be, knowing that it's good, great, grand, and so glorious. And we simply let it be. Join us together in saying, declaring, proclaiming, and so it is.
So it is.
Oh, it is. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine. As Reverend Sunshine said, our guest speaker is Maude Wilson, and she's returning to us. She spoke earlier as a special speaker, so she's even more special tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about Maude. She's a lay practitioner and has been so with CSL for 14 years. She's the founder of Hush Harbor, Oakland, where she serves as a ritual artist, grief and an end-of-life doula, funeral coordinator, and scholar of African American spiritualities. Her life's work is creating safe and sacred space for families to process life's big moments. She's a lifetime learner, world traveler, multi-passionate, creative, and a spiritual seeker. Maude continues to listen to African American ancestral wisdom to guide her into the right spaces to heal herself and others. So it's with great pleasure that I get to introduce her and welcome her and call her forth. Welcome, Maude.
Thank you so much. How nice. Thank you, Paul. And I want to thank Sunshine Michelle, Reverend Sunshine Michelle, for inviting me. I want to give thanks to the shout out to the tech team and the AV team and the support team for just being so great and willing to help me in all the ways that you have. Thank you. And I want to thank everybody who's here, all the participants who's here. Thank you for bringing your heart and your minds in an open and loving space to just breathe in, and let's have some good conversation tonight. And so tonight I am expanding upon the conversation around recognizing wholeness, seeing the good in all. And specifically, I am wanting to talk about seeing the good, the God in the difficult moments specifically. So in all transparency, when I first glanced at this topic, my eyes or my heart or my mind, something read it as seeing the God in all, recognizing wholeness, seeing the God in all. And immediately I was like, yes, this is my topic. I love it. I feel it. It hits right in my soul. It's so beautiful. And then later on, I just glanced back at the topic to just reread it again. And I recognized that it said, seeing the good in all. And for a moment, I had like a panic moment where I was like, I don't know if I can talk about this because I am really, I'm really all about authenticity, and I don't really feel like I could talk about something that I don't feel like I can actually say, yes, this idea is something that I've been playing with, something that I'm continuously working with, something that is in my heart and in my spirit. So I got a little bit freaked out, and I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if I can talk to this. Maybe I'm not the person to do this conversation. And so I had to, sit with it and process it for a moment. So I decided to just step back and to really just start thinking about, why is it that when I saw the topic as seeing the God in all, it felt right. But then when I saw the topic, the word was seeing the good in all, suddenly that changed the whole landscape for me. And so I started to contemplate that idea, like, what's the difference between God and good, and why is this such a different topic for me? And as I started to contemplate that, I was really thinking about those two words, and why do they seem so different when I have always equated God with good? So first I started thinking about that ever since I was a kid, I've always had this idea of God is in all of us. God is the good peace that's in us. It's that essence of each individual person. It's the basic goodness of the person. When you are born as this baby, this little human being, you are all good. And that is God within you. And so I've always kind of had this thought where I've always equated God is pure goodness, God is pure love. And so as I was growing up, as a kid, I was in Catholic school from kindergarten to 8th grade. And so I was getting steeped in the Catholic tradition, getting steeped in the Catholic God. And at the same time that I was in Catholic school, my family was Baptist. And so I would go to the Baptist church occasionally with my family. And so I was getting steeped in the Baptist God. And so I kind of started to understand, the different ideas of God from these two different traditions. And so as I was, in these different environments, I was getting very different messages and conflicting messages that conflicted with each other, as well as messages that just didn't sit with my heart. For example, I was getting some of the messages from the Catholic nuns and the Baptist preachers that was talking about a punishing God. They were talking about a God who is all powerful, who's all knowing, who's bigger than everything, and who actually puts people through these different painful and harmful trials and tribulations in order to, one, teach them things, but also two, to cause them to kind of bow down and acknowledge that, yes, God, you are the Almighty. And early on, those conflicting messages just seemed not right. And then some of the messages that I also heard was that, if you are a person of one faith, God only helps and only loves and only blesses certain people of certain faiths. So in order for you to really be blessed and be loved by God, you needed to have somehow found your way to the Baptist tradition or to the Catholic tradition. But for everybody else who hadn't found their way to those traditions, God was not one to love you. God was not one to hold you up. God was not one to listen to your prayers. God was not one to be present for you. And what I was realizing as I was thinking about this is how miraculous it was that through those kinds of messages that I have been receiving, intuitively, I always continued to understand God as this all loving, this all good, this presence that is divine and sits within us and is at our very core, the goodness of each person. And so, as I was understanding that, I started to recognize that as I was seeing God in everyone, I was also intuitively seeing good in everyone, because God is good and good is God and God is all good. And the divine presence is the beauty and the goodness that we all embody. And so I was remembering another piece. I was remembering a woman who I was beginning to develop a friendship with years ago, around maybe early on when I was in the Science of Mind tradition. So maybe around 12 something years ago. I was becoming friends with this woman outside of church, and we had started to hang out. Maybe we spent a good we hung out a couple of times together outside of church, and we were developing this really nice friendship. And I really liked her, and she really liked me, and it was beautiful. And then maybe about a month into that developing of that relationship, I heard through the grapevine that she had been diagnosed with cancer. And so when I heard about this diagnosis, I was overcome by fear. I was overcome by this fear. I was pretty much paralyzed by the fear that I was experiencing around her cancer diagnosis. And at the time, it was maybe 2 years fresh. My mom had just passed away from cancer. And so it was fresh, and it was difficult, and it was painful, and it was scary, and it was all of that. And so when she got diagnosed, I did not know. I just was really afraid for her. I was afraid for her life. I was afraid for her safety. I was afraid and thinking about my own mortality because she wasn't that much older than I was. And I was also so afraid that I couldn't really engage with her, because coming from Science of Mind, I didn't want her to take on my fear. I didn't want my fear to spill onto her and therefore cause her to not be able to reach remission, because she was so paralyzed with fear around her experience. And so what I did at that moment was I froze, I ran, and I couldn't support her as a friend. I talked with her on like platforms, like social media platforms, but I couldn't call her. I couldn't be in her presence because I was so afraid that I would cause her to kind of go down a rabbit hole of her situation. And I just couldn't do that. And so I realized that I was really afraid of that whole experience, and afraid of feeling the feelings that we have to feel as human beings, that we, as human beings, we have the ability to feel a variety of feelings, but I wasn't available to touch that feeling of fear, or to even experience the pain, or to sit with the pain with her. And so I remember one day around that time, I was talking to another friend, and we were talking about this friend, and I was getting like an update on how she was doing or what have you from this other friend. And I remember I was talking to the friend about the fact that we hadn't really talked, and I heard myself say to this other friend that I am really good at pumping people up who are already happy. I'm really good at making happy people happier. I'm really good at getting people amped up and motivating them when they're already in a good space. But I'm so not good at supporting people through difficult moments, or being present with people through challenging moments, because I just don't know what to say. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to do all that stuff. So as I remember, I was hearing myself say that to my friend, and I was really just overcome with this sense of shame for not being present for my friend, for not being able to be present with people through hard times, but running away from the hard times and only being able to be present with people when they're happy. Like, who wants a friend like that? And I remember I was just so ashamed of myself, and it sent me kind of on this journey to look at my sense of how I had been. I was new to Science of Mind. I was just getting the resources. I was just understanding the tools, change your mind, change your reality. And I had been using Science of Mind up until that point just to kind of bypass feeling the feelings that come with our human our human condition. I was using science of mind to basically not feel anything except happiness. It's already getting better. Before I even had a chance to sit with, I lost my job and I'm upset and I'm sad and I'm hurt, I would go to, it's already getting better. So I was using this philosophy in that way. And so that shame kind of sent me on this inward journey I made a commitment after that to really just to decide I wasn't going to allow myself to continuously live in this place of numbness, to continuously live in this place of not feeling the feelings of being human. So now fast forward 14 years, and now I find myself in this place of calling in and choosing this life path where I am being with people, supporting people at their most difficult moments, which is like, I flipped it. And, the moments like getting the diagnosis, the moments like before you are, the moment that you're on the journey to making your final transition, moments of grief that we feel when we lose a career, moments of grief that we feel when we get a divorce, when we lose a child, when we have all of these deep moments. These are the moments that I am seeking to support people through. But what I've been realizing what I've been recognizing while I've been in these moments with people during these difficult times, I have been seeing the God in these moments. I have been seeing the good in these moments, in these difficult and challenging moments. And the way that I think that God and good shows up in these difficult moments is through the grace that we give ourselves when we be patient with ourselves, when we decide to be gentle with ourselves, when we show ourselves the same amount of grace that we would show another person who's going through something similar, and the grace that we give others when we sit with them, when we hold them, when we pray for them, when we just love them, when we just be present with them during these difficult moments. To me, God shows up as the grace that we give ourselves and that we give others in the midst of the difficult moments. For example, I recently had a cancer scare, and it turns out that it wasn't cancer, but in between the moment that the doctor said, we should see what this is, to the moment that I found out that it was not cancer, was like a 2-week period. And so during that 2 weeks, I kind of was on this, roller coaster. I was up and I was down, and I couldn't really allow myself to be happy because this big thing is looming. And so how can I allow myself to laugh at this moment that's funny when I should be it's steeped in this moment that, oh my goodness, I could have this big battle on my hands. And in between that time, those 2-week periods, I remember there was this one moment where I was about to spiral. I was about to go down this rabbit hole of fear, this rabbit hole of stress, this rabbit hole of I can't smile because I should be sad, that kind of place. When I was in that moment, I remember that I recognized and I remembered how worrying does more harm than good. And I have a testimony of many times of how just worrying about something brought me into a place that I didn't even need to be in, and I wouldn't have been had I not sat there and worried about it. So I decided that I was not going to do that. I was going to give myself some grace. I was going to give myself the space and the time to feel the sadness, yes, to feel afraid, yes, to feel nervous, yes, to feel to wonder who will I be if I have cancer? How will I respond? How will I take care of myself? What will I leave my children if I actually don't make it? All of that, I decided to give myself the space to actually feel afraid, to not be afraid, if that makes sense. And I decided to spend time with my loved ones and to do the things that I loved. And so I got myself into that routine that I do the things that I love. So I would take long walks, power walks, because I love power walking. It helps me to contemplate and think through and recognize what I'm feeling. And is this feeling a real feeling, or am I just all that sort of thing? So I would do lots of long power walks throughout the day. I would, as I'm doing those power walks, I would listen to beautiful chants that would like fill my soul up. I called upon the people in my life who pray beautifully, that I always feel like they the prayer that they have for me at any given moment touches my heart, touches my spirit, raises my spirit. It always seems to bring me out of the place where I don't know what to pray for. And I have a few people who are like that. And so I called upon those people and asked for prayer, and they prayed for me, and it was really beautiful. And I built a little support team and told a couple of people what I was going through in case I wanted to talk about it. When I was ready to talk about it, I would call upon them. And I gave myself grace to ask for help, to take care of myself, to allow myself to feel the pain or to feel the sadness or to feel the anger or whatever it was I was feeling. And then I gave myself grace by receiving the love and the beauty that was coming from all of the places that I was actually calling out. And I'm not one who generally asks for help. So I was really like, I felt really glad after that I actually took the time to actually ask some people for help, ask some people to, can you be my support? Can you, talk me through this? Can you pray for me? Can you check on me? Those sorts of things. And then I allowed those people to be the beautiful people that they were. And I gave myself permission to cry. I gave myself permission to do all of those things. And so I think that what I did and all of those things that I did was grace. And it was the grace that I gave myself and the grace that other people gave me during that time of trouble. And so this is how I saw God in that difficult moment. I gave myself the grace to be in the difficult moment, to be gentle with myself, to ask for support, to love myself, and to allow others to give me love. And I received that love with open arms. And so I think that I called upon the good, and I called upon, what I called upon was the good and the God that sat right in the middle of that hard moment. And that's all I have for now. And I'm wondering if anybody else has any moments of how they experience the God or the good in all. And if you have any thoughts around, giving yourself grace, and any examples of when you gave yourself grace, or what does that look like for you? How does grace show up for you in the midst of the challenges, in the midst of the difficult moments?
Oh, wow. Fabulous, Maude.
Thank you.
And she's placed an inquiry for us. Share back. I think Reverend Sunshine's putting it in the chat. If you would, go into gallery view and turn on your cameras and your microphone. And if you have something to say, I'm going to ask you to show your hand. I'll recognize you, or you can raise your hand with the raise hand icon like that. And looking for someone to get the ball rolling. But wow, grace is the key, it sounds like, to your solution. So I love it. Loved it. Loved it. Someone else have a moment where they were up against a hard time and got through it? What got you through it? And did you use grace? Reverend Sunshine?
Well, I just want to kick it off by saying that's beautiful, Maude. Beautiful job. I love it. I love it. The way you brought it all together, especially with being transparent. That initial, which I love transparency. You know, I love authenticity. So you didn't have to tell us that at first you did this, you loved it, and then you freaked out, and it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not it. But here's my point, and here's the answer to my question. What I heard for me, what you did, what I heard that you did is you leaned in.
Mhm.
You leaned into, you paused, and you even said wonder in there. When you lean in, my team, my community knows, because I always talk about it. When you lean in with curiosity and wonderment, you open the space for spirit, for us to catch the response, because it's already there. But until we ask, we don't know.
Mhm.
It's already there, but until we open up with that curiosity and wonderment and lean in, then we can catch what it has for us. And that's, in my opinion, why you were able to find the grace. And so for me, I don't have a specific issue right now in mind, but I know there's been many times that I've found ease and grace because I look for it.
Mhm.
You know, the ease and grace can be there, but until we look for it, we can be hurried up. You know, I told I think I said it from the pulpit, you know, I go into a zone. So sometimes that's why I watch the recordings, because I don't know what I really say up there, even though I intend to say things. But I was hurrying up trying to get somewhere years ago. And then, you know, I'm just, it's not my way to like rush like that. But y'all know how it is when you're late for something and you're trying to get there and you just all just worked up. And then it just like bang up upside my head. It's like, oh, when I get there, I'll be there.
Exactly.
It's just like, you know, and then it was like, that's grace to me. Like
Yeah.
when you can just breathe into that. And of course, you may need to say something to somebody, you may need to call somebody, but what it does is right in here, it helps with my driving to get to that place. It helps with my parking to get to the place, to walk up in the place, you know, with the ease and the grace when we open up to it. So that's what I would offer. And thank you for your talk.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, yes, and yes. Someone else with a thought or something you'd like to share when Grace came into your life?
Alice, you're off mute. I know you have something to say. I know you're going to come up with it, but you know, anyway, I see you, so I'm calling you.
I was thinking of it.
Rev knows, you know,
Exactly.
it's in my job description.
I was thinking about when I first came to Science of Mind and how much I loved it the first time I heard the saying, "You're perfect, whole, and complete," because my whole life I kept trying to be perfect. And I realized, and we just last month we talked about paradox, so I'm blending 2 months here, right? But how paradoxical it is that in all my trying to be perfect, I could never attain it. But in letting go and surrendering to the possibility that maybe I'm already there, I was there, right? So it's a relief. I'm learning how to accept myself, no matter what's going on, that God's always with me, and that I am perfect just the way I am. It's more about learning how to love myself even more with every breath I take. So pretty cool stuff, I think. I'm complete.
Beautiful. Mhm.
Indeed.
The God
Someone
in
else? Constance, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think it might be my computer. I'm not sure whether you're gonna be able to hear me accurately or not. But I'll just move ahead. The whole concept of grace was one that was totally foreign to me when I first came to this philosophy. It was something I really was looking for, but I just didn't have a clue really what it meant. And I remember seeing my practitioner And my practitioner used to say, you use the word grace with me all the time, and I just didn't have a clue. You know, I thought, okay, well, maybe you say something I don't, but I don't have a clue what it is. And it's I have a better sense now, but it's a real I mean, I understand now that grace is with me all the time. But I was so ego defended that I couldn't accept that for a good deal of my life. So it's been wonderful to be able to let those the barriers down enough to be able to actually allow some of that in. So thank you for raising that, because I think it's a really beautiful topic and something that we can all benefit from just looking more and more into. So thank you.
You for the comment. And I was thinking about, I was gonna bring a definition of grace, but I was just like, grace is one of those things, like I feel like a long time I didn't know what it was either. So we hear people talk about it, and it's one of those kind of like subjective words, you know, but all of a sudden I had the moment where I was like, this is grace. This is giving myself grace, giving myself the ability to, or giving myself the kindness, giving myself the space to be gentle with my space. Like, that's grace. And so I could be totally using it in the wrong context, but I feel like suddenly I was like, oh, that's grace. And so I'm gonna receive it.
Totally, totally. Steve, I see your hand up.
Yes. Grace. Last year, I had a near fatal heart attack. And I was living in fear for quite a while after that, you know, and you know, my tests came back great. So doctors are kind of puzzled how that happened. And, you know, and I feel the grace, all that after the fear kind of set aside, and how lucky I actually am, you know, by the grace of God. You know, I am lucky, and I feel I won't say privileged, but I feel that being able to share my story with people, you know, and feeling kind of uplifted, and having my, I like I said, I was down in the dumps for quite a while, but my smile came back, and my laughter came back, and my, you know, some of you don't know, but my nickname as a chaplain was Dr. Love, you know, and I have, you know, and I told my nurses that, and they put it on my name, on my chart. And so the smile just came out, and I feel like I was able to share my story, and feeling really good inside, and knowing that I am whole, you know, and I just feel really good. Yeah, I feel really good, you know.
Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, Reverend Deb, is that a hand up, or you got flies in the room? Tell me what's going on.
I knew you would probably call me anyway, but just in case. So Maude, thank you for this topic. This is, you know, it's like it kind of gives me this opportunity to look at it in a way of truly remembering to see the good in everything. And what came to me was 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, when I went skydiving for my birthday. And I've shared this story before, but it still helps me to bring me back to this place of when I was standing at the door of the plane, and there was this opportunity. We were all, well, I was giddy. The rest of the people that were with me, they were kind of like nervous as I don't know what, but I was giddy and ready to go. And I'm standing at the door of the plane, and the guy is telling me, he said, okay, I'm going to count to 3 and we're going to jump out the plane. Well, in that moment, I'm standing there and I start like looking around the plane and then looking out at the ground. We were like 13,000 feet up. And all of a sudden, I started thinking about the parachute or about the plane. And I had to stop myself because in that moment, what Spirit gave me was that I'm about to make up fear, something to be afraid of, because there wasn't any. Even at that height, there was no fear. And so when I caught myself, I'm like, you know what? Let me enjoy this ride. Let me enjoy this jump. So when the guy decided to, he counted, he said 1, boom, we went right out the door. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened to 2 and 3? I'm thinking this, but as I was out there, in the sky, it felt so easy being out there, like I was truly carried by Spirit. But it was such a graceful moment because the guy was on my back and, he pulled the chute and we just sailed. And it felt like such a heartfelt moment to just be in that space and to just see everything around me and to see God in everything as we were landing. And then I had to remember, oh, wait a minute, what am I supposed to do with my feet? Am I pulling my feet up when I land, or what am I supposed to do so that I don't break my legs? And so, but it all worked out and we landed perfectly. And I carried that even from the point when I was leaving from Oakland, moving to here to Georgia. And that whole process, that became that memory point for me. Go back to that, to when I made that jump. Go back to that place when I was making up fear. So that was my ease and grace moment, but also an opportunity to see the good in everything. So Maude, thank you for this topic for tonight. I appreciate it.
You for sharing. Yeah, seeing the God in everything as you're falling out of the sky.
Moving on to Constance. Constance, what do you have, darling?
Better her than me, I just need to add.
I was gonna say we were complaining about the cold. She's jumping out of the plane.
Come on, you all can hang and say we can do this one more time. Come on. You all can hang with me.
If that
Be a
plane
bird.
is in air that's less than 65 degrees, we ain't going. Sunshine and I are not going, huh, girl? We ain't messing up my hair, the single, or all of hers. No way. We're staying where we're at. Anyways, Constance, come on.
Well, I just wanted to say that something that Steve said reminded me that when I was in my early 30s, I had left the PhD program that I was working on because I knew there was something in me that knew that I was only living from my neck up, and I needed to get in touch with the rest. I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew. And so I ended up working in battered women's shelters. I'd always wanted to see what it was like to counsel people. And I remember quite often talking to a woman and hearing her story and thinking, there for the grace of God was I. Because it was when I was working in that situation that I realized that I'd been in an abusive relationship. I hadn't even been able to identify it. And the other thing is that the other thing that I thought about grace is that even though I heard really horrendous stories, I just kept thinking these are some of the strongest people I've ever met. And that carried on with me because when I was later in my life, I was working in the First Nations, the Aboriginal community, and all my students, I mean, not all of them, but some of them had been through some of the abuse that was beyond that I had never even heard about. It was so bad. And again, it was like they were such a strong group of people. They've been through something, and they've been, and that to me is grace. That is, they were being carried on the wings, or on the arms during those horrible, horrible times, and they were kept alive. just not everyone was. They came out of it and they extremely strong women. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then when you meet people who've had difficult experiences and they are like they have this zest for life, you know, like this amazing zest for life, even though they've been through such hard times. It's such a beautiful thing.
Someone else want to share something? Grady, maybe? Grady's our wisdom whisperer.
Come on, Miss Grady, give us a Gradyism. No pressure.
Gracefully, we request your presence. She might be in a spot where she cannot, so.
Or unmute.
Yeah.
That's okay, Miss Grady. We can come back to it because you're on for encore in January.
Well, I had an experience in December of last year, actually, Maude, and I also had a near miss, you might say. And from the onset of, oh, that level is too high. And to the time I found out that it wasn't cancer, it was just something we would monitor going forward every 6 months. I didn't know where I was going. I had my life, I had my home, I had my church. I was bringing in a new minister. We were going through the process. I was on the leadership team at church, and it was a big time of transition, and my presence was necessary. So I had that going on towards the end when the candidates were coming. I found out in like October and had to wait until December to have a very invasive test to find out. So I had been carrying it and then had to have multiple tests to confirm and carrying it. But there was something inside, way deep inside, that I knew that I was going to survive this. I can't explain it. I don't know. But in order for me to embrace that, I had to clear my decks. I had to say goodbye to Oakland Center. I had to welcome in sunshine one day and tell her the next day, in 6 days, I'm going to have this procedure. And if it comes out the other way, I will not be able to go all the way into the ministry at the level. So I need to withdraw and take care of myself. It wasn't grace. It was basically giving me the space and getting my ducks in a row. And that gave me strength to face it. Of course, Reverend Sunshine steps in, does her magic on me, and says, it's a true story, Sunshine, right? I'm sorry, I'm being a little open and authentic. But she said, Paul, I understand, because we go back before when she was a practitioner, I was a real nobody at the center, her and I go way back. And so she said, I want to pray with you on the day of your procedure. And she did. And if it wasn't for her, I would have never gotten up on that table, because I was not messing up my hair that day. I was not jumping out of that plane, and I was not relying on anybody else to pull the parachute for me. It was like, I told Steve, I cannot do this. That was the preparation to go to it. I just can't do all of this stuff. And he said, easily, he said, I know. And that was that reaching out you talked to be honest with somebody else that you could trust. And then Reverend Sunshine did the most miraculously wonderful visualization prayer, and it got me up on that table. And it got me up on that table to find out 10 days later, there was nothing there, which allowed me to recover and heal and come back and work at the center at my pace. And now I'm back to full steam with Reverend Sunshine. So your experience was similar to mine, but there was something deep in my core that I knew it was going to be okay. Just like when Reverend Deb said, I looked at the plane, I looked at the thing, and I said, okay, here comes fear. No, it ain't coming. I didn't have that thought. I just knew. And I'm just asking you, do other people that you deal with in your experience, we talked about it in your intro, it's pretty life-altering experiences. Do some kind of have an inner sense that everything is going to be all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think many people have an inner sense of that it's going to be okay, especially many times when they have tools like we have. So some of those tools help us to get that fear out of the way and go down to the core of what we truly believe. And, you know, but yeah, when a lot of people are intuitive, a lot of people can sense or feel that inner knowing of when it's going to be okay and when it's not, you know, when they need to do a little bit more work to get to that place. But I would say yes.
Paul, I know you're at the end of this, but let me just jump in here and put my 4 or 5 cents in here. It all comes down to 2 things, people: faith and trust.
Yes.
Because if you have a little bit of faith, like that, what the grain of a mustard seed, it a little bitty tiny thing. All you need to do, you don't even know you have faith, but there's that sense that some people don't even know that they have. And then you lean in, you trust something. You can't even describe it, whether it's grace, it's good, it's God, whatever it is, and you trust in it. Then that's where, in that gap space, that miraculous thing can happen.
Yes.
I agree, and I'm going to throw my 2 cents in. Faith, trust, and truth. Faith is the action. It's teeny. Trust. Faith is the thought. It's teeny. Trust is the action. And truth is the container that cements it and anchors it. And that in Aramaic is what amen means. Faith, trust, and truth. That's how they end their prayers in Aramaic. So it's time for us to end our discussion. I'm sad to say, I said we would go over with Maude Wilson because she just brings out the best in us. Let's show us how much we appreciate it.
Thank you
so much. So with a little faith, a lot of trust and absolute truth, we've got some announcements, Peter. I think that's next on the agenda as we move forward. There's a lot going on at the center, folks, and I know announcements can be uncomfortable, so we're going to try to give it its space and grace right now. This Sunday, December 17th, Reverend Sunshine Michelle Coleman will be speaking to In the Name of Wholeness, Enriching the World. Meditation is at 10 and service is at 10:30. We'll also be celebrating at this service the winter solstice. And that's not all for this Sunday. Food will be served after service on Sunday. Now that's not all. Then make your way back to the sanctuary for a labyrinth workshop and blessing from 1:30 to 3 with Reverend Alice Martin. So if you're coming to the service on Sunday, be ready. It's a full service Sunday. Also, remember that all of our services in December will be 90 minutes in length to allow for celebrating all the festivals of light this month. The candlelighting service will take place during the Sunday morning service on December 24th. Now, on Wednesday, December 20th, the wonderful Reverend Ikea Param will give us her take on in the name of wholeness, enriching the world, next Wednesday. Meditation at 6:30 and service is at 7, and we will be in Zoom. Now, our administrative coordinator, Constance Chapman, is here. You hear me talk about her every Wednesday when I get to host. Well, she is retiring at the end of December. So join her and her friends and family and our congregation in an evening of celebration for her at her retirement gathering on Friday, December 29th at 6 p.m. A light supper will be served, but in order to do that light supper, we need to know how many folks are coming. So please RSVP no later than December 22nd. So visit our events page, and on our website, you'll see this advertisement and the place where you can RSVP. Also going on in the center is come meditate literally in the sanctuary. Come meditate, pray, and or walk the labyrinth in sacred contemplation on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1. It's a wonderful experience. If you have the time available, please come in and enjoy the labyrinth in our beautiful sanctuary. Also returning is the Holiday Giving Barrel. It's back. So check the Village News or our events page for a list of items to donate to our selected organizations we're supporting. The barrel is located now in the lobby of the social hall in the education building, and there's information there as well for you to see. Lots of dates to save, so get your calendar ready. On January 7th, the Women's Spiritual Empowerment Group will return and start. That's Sunday, January 7th. There's a workshop after service on Sunday, January 14th with Reverend Mitch Austin on taming your inner critic. Then on January 13th, the day before, Reverend Sally and Reverend Ikea's ordination. Then the Big Leap book study with practitioner Judith Roberts will start on Tuesday, January 16th. And if that's not enough, the 2024 Vision Board Party is on Saturday, January 20th at 11 a.m. If you still find some time in your life, the Centers for Spiritual Living events that are coming up, these are our headquarters. They're offering 4 Pivots book study in January, and in February, the 2024 Vista Conference in Charleston, South Carolina. And that will run from February 19th to the 22nd. So, lots of activities coming up in the future, lots of things happening on Sunday. So please join us. There's so much happening on our center. Events, workshops, classes, and more. So visit our website at opencsl.org and sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for special updates and content you'll only find by liking and subscribing to Oakland Center. So please like us and subscribe to Oakland Center today. Look at these wonderful people. All of these people are the heartbeat of the center, doing all these jobs and roles for us, and we're so grateful. And notice that Constance is there, and we announced that her retirement is coming up. I want to just take a moment and recognize that her replacement is going to be Steve Carter, and Steve Carter's with us at this event tonight. So we want to welcome Steve into the role, and we know he's going to do a wonderful job. With all of that in mind, we're joyous and happy, and we're giving at our center in many, many ways. So join me for a moment and think about an offering you can make to the center, whether it's time, treasure, or talent. If it's financial, wonderful, because we can always use that to keep the physical plant rolling at the center. So if you have any one of those things, just hold them close to your heart in the moment. Bring it down into our reality in the moment, and let's joyously joyously recognize it by saying, joyously I give with an attitude of abundance, knowing that as I give, I do receive. Now, if it's financial and you want to give that, all you have to do is go to the donate icon on our website, the one with the hearts. Once you click that, you'll see 5 ways to give via that donate icon. It's credit card, by mail, Zelle, by text, or by joining us Sunday at service, and we have an offering basket where it will joyfully receive your gift. So I want to take a minute and thank the folks that make this all happen. I want to thank, first of all, our speaker, Maude Wilson, for returning. This was an encore performance. I know we're going to hear more from her in the future. I want to thank our ministerial support that's with us tonight. Reverend Deb Hammond, all the way from Savannah, Georgia. Thank you, madam, for being with us. I want to shout out to Reverend Sally Bartholomew, who will be hosting next week. We trade off back and forth, and I enjoy working with her on this as host. And finally, and not leastly, but mostly, Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman here with us doing the opening prayer and keeping us all on our best behavior. So thank you, Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman. Also, none of this happens easily and effortlessly unless you have an expert team, and we have an expert team working behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, doing all the stuff that makes this physically possible tonight. So I want to recognize Peter up in Portland and Alice Knudsen over in Marin. And I also want to recognize Constant Chapman and San Leandro for all of her support. I don't think I'm missing Peter. Is that everybody tonight? I think so. And Alice Herndon usually is with us and is not, but I want to shout out to her. Peter, am I good with the team?
Good. You're good.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you for confirming. So we're going to close our event tonight as we always do. As we always open with prayer, we close with prayer. And we've asked from our AV team, practitioner Alice Knudsen, to pray us out. Alice, would you do us the honors?
I would love to. So everyone just take a nice deep, deep breath, knowing that this breath is the breath of God. And how good it is to know that God is all there is. Perfect, whole, and complete. God is wholeness and God is love. And how good it is to know that God moves in and among and through all things, and that there is absolutely no spot where God is not. And we are so blessed to be together tonight, steeping in the love of the one and showing up for ourselves with Spirit leading us. I know that I am one with God, and I know that everyone here and not here is one with the one, for there is only the one. And so I speak my word. I am so grateful and so thankful for all that has taken place tonight, for all the wisdom that's been shared, for all the revealing and the vulnerability and the conversation that we take with us and allow it to feed us throughout the week until the next time we meet. I give thanks to our amazing speaker tonight and all the love and wisdom she has shared so graciously with us, and for our conversation around grace, knowing that God always showers us with grace. And our hearts are filled, and we are joyous, and we embrace all of life and all our wholeness. And so, please join me in saying, and so it is. Blessed be.
And so it is.